Brad Keselowski broke one of the strongest bones in the human body just 8 weeks ago. At one point, he was not even sure he would walk normally again. Now, he is climbing back into a NASCAR going nearly 200 miles per hour, and he is about to start the biggest race in American motorsports. The story begins on December 18th during what was supposed to be a relaxing family ski vacation. Keselowski had stepped away from the intense NASCAR schedule to spend time with his family in the mountains. The off-season is often the only time drivers get to truly unwind, but in a moment that changed everything, Keselowski slipped on a patch of ice. The fall seemed simple at first, but the impact was brutal. His right femur had broken. The femur is the strongest bone in the human body, and breaking it requires tremendous force. The injury immediately became a serious medical situation. Doctors rushed to treat the damage and begin the long recovery process. For most athletes, this kind of injury brings uncertainty and fear. Keselowski later admitted that the early weeks were the most difficult of his life. 3 to 5 weeks into recovery, he faced a terrifying possibility. He was not even sure if he would walk normally again. The pain was overwhelming and constant. He described it as the worst pain he had ever experienced. During those early weeks, the idea of racing again felt incredibly distant. Walking across a room required effort. Standing up was painful. The thought of climbing into a stock car and driving at speeds over 190 miles per hour seemed almost impossible. But Brad Keselowski has built his career on resilience. His path through NASCAR has always been about overcoming doubt. Long before he became a champion, he fought his way into the sport through determination and relentless work. Keselowski grew up in a racing family. His father, Bob Keselowski, was a racer himself, and the sport was always part of Brad's life. As a young driver, Brad faced financial struggles and uncertainty about whether he could even stay in racing, but he never stopped believing in his ability. That persistence paid off when he finally broke through in NASCAR. In 2012, he achieved the ultimate goal by winning the NASCAR Cup Series championship. Keselowski has come close several times, but victory has always slipped away. In 16 previous Daytona 500 starts, he has never reached victory lane, yet he has proven many times that he knows how to win on superspeedways. Across Daytona and Talladega, he has collected 7 victories. That record places him among the best superspeedway racers of his era. Still, the Daytona 500 trophy remains the one that continues to elude him. As the 2026 season approached, Keselowski hoped this could finally be the year he conquered the race that had always frustrated him. But after the skiing accident in December, even making the starting grid seemed unlikely. Recovery from a broken femur is not simple. It demands patience, therapy, and incredible mental strength. Keselowski began working closely with doctors and physical therapists to regain strength in his leg. The process was slow at first. Basic movements had to be relearned carefully. Muscles weakened by injury needed time to rebuild. Every small improvement felt like progress. Yet Keselowski set a clear goal from the beginning. He wanted to return for the Daytona 500. That timeline seemed unrealistic to many observers. 8 weeks is an incredibly short recovery period for such a serious injury. Even walking comfortably can take months after a broken femur. But Keselowski refused to think about what others expected. His focus stayed on getting stronger every single day. Week by week, his condition improved. The pain slowly began to fade. Physical therapy sessions grew longer and more intense. The strength in his right leg started to return. Still, driving a NASCAR Cup Series car is physically demanding. The cockpit is tight, and the forces during a race are extreme. Drivers must handle constant vibration, intense heat, and the pressure of controlling a 3,400-pound car at nearly 200 miles per hour. Before being allowed back behind the wheel, Keselowski needed to prove he could safely handle the physical demands of racing. That test came on February 9th at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Keselowski climbed into a race car for a 50-lap evaluation run. The purpose of the test was simple but critical. Officials needed to see whether he could drive comfortably, control the car, and endures the physical stress. For Keselowski, the test represented the most important moment of his recovery. If he passed, he would be cleared to compete in the Daytona 500. If he failed, the dream would end before the season even began. When the engine fired and the car rolled onto the track, it marked his first real step back into competition since the injury. Lap after lap, he pushed through the run. The physical strain was real, but he handled it. The car responded smoothly and his lap times remained consistent. When the test ended, the verdict arrived. Brad Keselowski was cleared to race. Just 8 weeks after breaking his femur, he had officially earned the right to compete again. Even though he had been cleared to compete, questions remained about how his body would handle a full race. The Daytona 500 is long and demanding. Drivers must remain focused for 500 miles of intense racing. To ensure safety, a backup plan was arranged. Former NASCAR Cup driver David Reagan stood by as a potential relief driver. If Keselowski felt unable to continue during the race, Reagan could step in and finish the event, but Keselowski hoped that would not be necessary. The first real test of race conditions came during the dual qualifying race. The duels determine the starting lineup for the Daytona 500 and provide drivers with an early chance to experience pack racing. Keselowski climbed into the car with the same determination that had carried him through recovery. When the race began, he looked strong immediately. Running inside the draft at Daytona requires precise control and confidence. Despite his recent injury, Keselowski showed both. Throughout the race, he remained competitive in the pack. He avoided trouble and positioned himself well in the closing laps. When the checkered flag waved, Keselowski crossed the line in 4th place. It was a respectable and encouraging result. More importantly, it proved that he could handle the physical demands of racing again. The performance also reminded everyone of his skill on super speedways. Now the focus turns to the main event, the Daytona 500. For Brad Keselowski, this race carries extra meaning. Not only is it the biggest event in NASCAR, it represents the final chapter of one of the most remarkable injury recoveries in recent memory. Just weeks ago, he was uncertain whether he would even walk normally again. Now he is preparing to compete at the highest level of motorsport. The journey from that icy fall in December to the starting grid at Daytona has been filled with pain, determination, and relentless effort. Many athletes talk about overcoming adversity. Keselowski has lived it, and now he has one more challenge ahead. Winning the Daytona 500 has always been one of the greatest goals of his career. 16 previous attempts have ended without victory. As the engines fire and the field rolls toward the green flag, Brad Keselowski will sit inside his car knowing exactly how far he has come. 8 weeks earlier, he was lying in a hospital bed with a broken femur and an uncertain future. Now, he is chasing one of the most famous trophies in motorsports. Whether he wins or not, simply taking the green flag will already represent a remarkable triumph. But for a competitor like Brad Keselowski, finishing the race is not the only goal. He came to Daytona for one reason: to finally win the Daytona 500.